My specific interest in talking to you today was to understand the role that blockchain is playing in the telecommunications domain. So what we
Yes.
understand, from a cursory view is that the blockchain is associated more with the information security aspect and authentication aspect. So, I mean, prima facie, it would appear that its role is restricted more to the BSS part of things, BSS or maybe some level of OSS part of things.
Some level of voices.
Yeah. But what I'm specifically interested in is to go a little layer deeper in than that and try and understand at what level does blockchain or hyperledger intersect the core mobility function. So by core, I mean the switching core as well as the radio access function. I'd like you to share some your
Mhm.
insights on this.
Yeah, so this is a very interesting question because I think in 2019 we started this group under
Mm-hmm.
Hyperledger,
Okay.
and because I proposed this in there's a concept called ONAP Academic Summit in New York. So
Okay.
I was there, and then we were discussing how we can do a lot of things in telco and blockchain. So I
Mm-hmm.
thought that we should start a group in in Linux Foundation so that people can come together and can discuss things and can discuss at least telco should come up and they should give us some use case to the
Mm-hmm.
blockchain community that can you solve these problems. And this is how
Mm-hmm.
we started in 2019. And and if you understand, so in 2018 also I wrote a on a patent on this. Means I started. It took
Mm-hmm.
us like
Mm-hmm.
5 years or 6 years to publish in India,
Mm-hmm.
but that paper that patent says blockchain defined a multi-domain orchestrator. So multi-domain orchestrator is a thing that I think in future you will see more. Once
Mm-hmm.
you open up RAN, which is like through ORAN, you can open a network, right, to a different vendors, right?
Right,
Once
right.
different vendors come into the picture, then the problem is trust, right?
Yes.
So that is the multi-domain orchestrator, or you can say neutral host, or this kind of technology you will see more and more once you will see adoption of Open RAN.
Mm-hmm.
So we started like this, and so for example, let's take this example that how blockchain can help. So once you have a different vendors, right? For
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
example, generally you have L1 from one vendor and L2, L3 from one vendor, right?
Correct.
So just take the example L1 as a FlexRed,
Mm-hmm.
and L2, L3. Let's take the example of Capgemini or let's say Redis, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is like two vendors, two different vendors.
Mm-hmm.
But once you, and radio is from different vendor, right? By the way.
Yes, yes.
So, but let's suppose now this is a scenario that where you have a radio from one vendor,
Mm-hmm.
another radio from different vendor, but operator is same. Let's suppose, right? Of course, it will happen in future. You will see. Why I'm saying this because recently there's a news that how BSNL is now asking Ericsson and ZTE that can you make our radios, which is I think Tejas, right,
Mm-hmm.
for the
Mm-hmm.
4G, can you make some compatibility with 2G and 3G as well? So these are two different vendors, right? Three different vendors by one operator.
Mm-hmm.
So in future you will see more because why? Because why I'm saying this more because this is a standard splits, for example, 7.2 splits or so that you will the idea of Open RAN is to include more and more radio vendors, and then
Mm-hmm.
you have a different L1 players, different L2, L3 players, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So in this way, we can design some kind of environment. Let's say, for example, you have one operator and different radio vendors
Mm-hmm.
and different L1 on based
Mm-hmm.
on different radios, and then L2, L3, let's say different. So very much vendor off means not no vendor lock-in, nothing, right?
Right.
COTS
Right.
hardware and everything is open. So in this scenario, the only problem is how I should trust different. So because once we talk about SLA and once we talk about KPI and all these things, everyone say, okay, this is your problem, and this happens all the time, in especially in telcos.
Mm.
And considering this, I'm not talking about CDRs as well because CDR itself is a big problem for in roaming and all these
Yes.
problems. Right?
Yes.
It's a
Yes.
big problem. So this problem will be bigger more, right? CDR problem or SLA problem will become more and more once you have more vendors involved. So currently vendors are very much in, let's say, what radio from one vendor, max to max, L1, L2, L3 is from one vendor. But now once you open up this network, then there will be more trust issues, more SLA issues, more CDR issues. So will come up, right? We have these issues currently as well, but in future you will see these issues more. So that is why, let's suppose if you have a different radio units and different DUs or whatever. So in DU pool, what we do is we collect all these DU stuff at one place, and there's a on the edge. So this is I also wrote a paper in 2020. I think it's published in IEEE transaction as well regarding how you can manage edge orchestrators, right? So there's a paper I wrote, a blockchain defined multi-domain edge orchestrator. So edge orchestrator is very interesting. Why? Because ultimately it all happens on the edge, right? At last. So if you have an edge orchestrator, edge as an entity, and edge is, let's say, CU, you are running a CU software from different vendors, and CU pool is there. So if I run a blockchain on that local domain, right? If I call this as a domain, and once you have this domain at one place, and this is a local blockchain running on this as an orchestrator on one area, and then this local blockchain can talk to, let's say, one main blockchain, which is a consortium of different vendors or different operators. So in this case, what we can do is we can reduce the trust. I mean, there will be no trust issues. Why? Because we are managing everything at the local, at edge level as well as, and then again to the consortium things. So whatever SLA breach will happen, whatever CDR issues will happen, that can be solved by smart contracts. And that's why these orchestrator especially will play a very important role in terms of developing a consortium and things. So